You know, I've done some studying about fire. You know, I've been a volunteer firefighter. I, for the intro today, have one of the books I've talked about in my other videos. It's called Under a Flaming Sky, and it's the book that tells about a fire in 1894 that engulfed a town. Well, during my fire research, I came across a military unit. Welcome back to another lesson in history with Sister Kate. Ha. The unit I'm talking about, I don't know if any of you've heard of before. I know you've heard of the 9th and 10th Cavalry, the Buffalo Soldiers, but have you ever heard of the 555th, the Triple Nickels? The Triple Nickels were the first airborne infantry unit that had black men in it, and it began at Fort Benning, where this training was taking place. I knew nothing about them, and they were the first military smoke jumper unit. They were formed in the 1943-44 time period at Fort Benning, and they were excuse me, black soldiers who, I think the first person was a Sergeant Morris, saw the training that the white soldiers were doing to be in airborne units, and after he would get off his military job, he and some of his friends would get together and do the same training. And a general saw them, I think his name was General Ben Lear, supposedly very fussy general, and said they were as fine as soldiers as he had ever seen, and so they were recommended to become their own unit, because at that time the military was segregated and there were no airborne black units. And so these guys were designated their own airborne unit. And at that time, in the European War, the 555th also was not deployed because it was never a full-strength battalion unit. It was always around the size of a company, and so, or even smaller. And so it was fit into other units because it was such an elite group. But they did a lot of things in their time. But they had a very special job for them, because on the West Coast, the Japanese had been sending over incendiary balloons. They'd float them across the Pacific with the idea that they would hit the western coast and ignite our force and cause a huge forest fire over there. And this was a secret mission. This was not something that everybody knew about, but it was a true danger, and some of those balloons made it, and some of those balloons caused fires. So these men became the first military smoke jumpers, and on a secret mission were assigned to the West Coast out in Oregon and fought those fires, jumped in and fought the fires. So they are called the Triple Nickels, the 555th, and they set history. They made American history by becoming the first military smoke jumpers and the first black airborne infantry unit. And after the war and integration and everything, they became attached to all the combat airborne units, including the 82nd and the 101st and part of the 2nd Ranger Battalion, and are decorated for being the most, I won't say used, but they were assigned to more military combat units than any other airborne unit. So these were just amazing people. And they set the standard, they set the training and everything for the smoke jumpers who came after. Smoke jumpers who now are a major part of the firefighting apparatus in our western United States, especially in those huge mountain fires, along with the airplanes that drop the water and the chemicals down and everything. The smoke jumpers are used strategically to head off and fight fires in very remote locations. So just an amazing, amazing military unit. There's many, many pages on the interwebs about them. All you got to do is type in the 55th Airborne Battalion and you will see them all. Read about them. Just fascinating stuff. Every time I go down the rabbit hole of looking at history, I find out so many other things. And it's not just about our country, it's about worldwide. Netflix has a really, really good series right now on Medal of Honor winners, and there are some fascinating people in there. If you have Netflix, you should watch those. I think there's 8 of them. I think I cried on every single one. Just brave, brave, brave people. All right, I hope you find this interesting. Go research the triple nickels. A really, really, really cool story. All right, bless you. Shalom.